in this week, on this week, на неделю. Вот. And actually, and apparently I think that I will have not a lot of, but a bunch of questions to ask, and I will ask them in our chat in Telegram.
Great.
So okay, and as I so my summary and opinion about what I've heard out of what I heard from the story, the report of my colleague Daniel. Apparently, my colleague, apparently Daniel, have reached the point where apart from problems and issues that could be in the input, in the output, I mean something incorrect moments, but apart from them, the output itself is too large, and it is very complicated to, I mean, dive into it and analyze it. So that's the amongst the problem he met.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and yeah, and this feature with output file, where all the input will be presented is great actually.
Sorry, this part I didn't understand. The output.
I mean the proposition of George about output file.
Yeah, so, yeah. We definitely need to find some strategy for better organizing the output of these tests, especially as your test files grow. It'll become more complicated. I also wanted to well, I think it's early, but maybe we can already start to think a little bit about corpora and running our transducer over a corpus to try to understand how many words we recognize in it. We only have numerals, so this is probably going to be a very small number, but it's very fun to watch as you add new forms to watch this coverage go up. That's sort of the point at which it becomes.
Oh, excuse me. I've got a question to ask. Also, it concerns corpora coverage and I mean measurements of total, I mean achievements of the model to build. So in the I mean by Tuesday. By Tuesday or by Wednesday, we should write our техническое задание.
Yes.
Техническое задание. So and as in every good техническое задание and well contained, our техническое задание must include the question of I mean, the horizon, the frame of our efforts. So not it can be it not obligatory should be very strict, but it must contain some. I mean, maybe not. It's like minimum, not the minimum valuable product, but I mean something that we consider as a minimum and something as we consider as a maximum, and some stages between them. I mean some plan from minimal valuable point to maximum. But it also can be a strict rim that we, by which we, I mean, it's quite difficult to explain actually.
Well, I can tell you what are some potential goals I could think of. Uh, I think that we have a lot of flexibility on how we choose our goals. Uh, uh, one goal could be that we produce a morphological analyzer which can analyze corpora that HSC has collected.
Yes.
This is already probably pretty interesting, I think. Maybe Garda can correct me, but I think that if we're able to capture most of the morphology, then the words which our transducer does not recognize represent something that could be interesting for field linguists.
So George shared his opinion in chat about it. So maybe I don't know much about how finite state about how not the finite state transducer work. I actually know something about it, but because I read about it. So, but we should maybe I mean by we I mean my colleagues and I, so Daniel, Daria, and I, in our техническое задание, we should show our goals from two perspectives. It's the lexical domains that we want to cover, and baseline that represents the percentage of corpora covered. Mm-hmm. So it could sound like, oh, we want to cover we want to cover noun inflectional morphology, verbal inflectional morphology, adjective inflectional morphology, numeral, maybe some not complicated derivational morphology, and this, this must be, and this must give us the coverage, maybe 60% of coverage of corpora.
I want to be careful about setting some numerical criteria because there are lots of things that can go wrong that will make it difficult for us. For example, there could be lots of orthographic variation in our corpora. Yeah. I think it's unlikely that we have, I don't know, maybe Guy can correct me, but how much do we actually have which is in local orthography?
For Agul is 0.
Great. So we already recognize 100%. Perfect.
Yeah, the idea that Agul corpora is collected and transcribed within the phonetic transcription.
Mm-hmm. So then I think that we need to create probably one of these orthography change transducers so before we will be able to run experiments with the corpus. And you're not aware of any existing local orthography corpora, is it true?
Yes.
I don't. The problem is that it will be, but Roman is exactly lucky to have corpora and grammar from the same text, from the same lect.
But actually, yeah. So by corpora, you mean the collection of storytellings that, okay.
For example, any texts, I think, will are count for me. Right. Okay. So so then, yes. I think that we should be able to, I think that we can expect to have some level of coverage, maybe 40%, 50%. But even with says, which I've been working on for, I've probably put 2 months of work into says, I still get something like 50% coverage. And the problem for me is that my texts are all in different dialects, and my grammar is in a third dialect. So
Yeah.
my I don't have the information necessary to write a transducer which recognizes the dialects that I have texts for. So if you were to run into such a problem, your coverage would probably look very low.
Yeah. I mean, in my preposition, I forgot the fact that I missed the fact that corpora is not a dictionary, and actually in corpora, bad or good, very, very, I mean, different type of utterances can be stored.
Mhm.
So the data can repeat many times. I mean, by data, I mean tokens and so on and so forth. And it will be, and it would have the huge effect on the percentage of our coverage.
Right. You also want to look at coverage of unique forms. So sort of you count them without multiplicity. Those are both interesting numbers. But I guess the main message that I wanted to communicate is that right now I don't feel comfortable setting any particular numerical bound.
So by now, the only thing.
Sorry, Garrick?
Or it could be really small. I would say 15%. I will be happy, and I think that's something that could be put in these technical. What do you have them? Proposal.
Okay, 15%. 15%. Let's say 15% of unique forms, or 15% of forms with multiplicity.
With multiplicity.
Okay, so sort of we'll favor the most common words. Most common words are also likely to be most irregular.
We'll see.
Okay.
I think for Roman case, for all cases except Abaza, there are different problems on this field. For Roman, for instance, there is no any dictionary that is problem, but there is a grammar and corpus from the same place. That is super cool because it will make it easy to work with, but dictionaries are not digitalized, or I'm not aware. So there are some dictionaries of other dialects, but they are in the halfway of digitalizing.
Mhm.
For Bagwalal, it's another problem. There is a huge book on Bagwalal, but there are some texts, but the corpora is really small, so it's something like 3 or 4 or even 5 texts. But the grammar is the same dialect, and there is a huge dictionary there.
Digitalized.
I'm not sure.
Uh-oh.
So it's all within one book, and this for Bottlich it's easier because there are two. So there is a grammar, but there is no much like good grammar, but written on Bottlich. But there are two dictionaries that contradicts itself.
Great. That's perfect.
And I guess the corpora is smallish. I guess it's something like, it's not so huge, but we have it. For Abaza, it's all the things are greater because I think, yeah, it's more or less better because we have different corpora for them, even 2 different corpora, but they are different. So one is parallel with Russian, but not glossed, and another is glossed but small. And we have grammar and we have dictionaries that are digitalized.
Mhm.
So for all languages, we have some problems that could be needed to be solved, and even for those that are even for Roman case, that is it in my view, it's really the easiest one. The corpora are presented as glossed text, so you need to have some work on preparing them into something for lexd, because you need to read off English translation and change it to the root, and the root could be different in different forms. So you can see it from the top, but it could be some a little bit different. So for instance, like, I don't know, like go went difference in English, suppletion forms. So there are some problems over there too.
So, and what can I conclude out of it? Maybe in our case, it's more the most applicable option is just to include the boundaries, the boundaries that concern only lexical, not, but I mean part of speech domains that.
No, I against this, actually. So defining this as the part of speech domains, this is, for me, it sounds like unsexy for some reason. I don't know. I'm not sure, because here I think that ICE will be happy with any numerical value that we give her. If we will give 15%, I think it will be okay. If we
Okay.
give her something like we'll cover numerals and so on and so on, it's just too general. It's more things can go wrong there than in just having low numeric value.
Mhm. Let's say 15% then. I think it's reasonable. If we have a digitalized corpus, we can look at what the most frequent tokens are, and we can target them first.
This is what I called. This we actually discussed it in the chat partially. So how tricky is it? Because it's something like we going circular, and so we looking what make it better and going circle. So is it better to, as Dasha proposed, to split our corpus into some parts and do some work like in machine learning? So you do some work on some part and then check on the other.
Yes, I think that's a great idea. Even better is if we can if we have sort of two distinct corpora, and we leave one of them as the mystery corpus, and only test it afterwards. But so it's better than just splitting a single corpus, because the domain changes, and you get some information about how your transducer generalizes to other domains.
Why can't you have a new split anytime you rerun checks? So
No.
I was thinking about so for instance, we've done with the numerals. Then we split, I don't know, it's actually only for Roman case, because for all other corpora they are too small enough to split. So we need to figure out something. But for Roman's case, it's huge, so it's possible to do something like Roman created lexd and twol for numerals. He randomly split, I don't know, 20% and do something on 80, and then check on the rest of that is 20%. And then after everything finished, he added, I don't know, adjectives or nouns, and then resplit it and do again the circular work on his numerals, or for instance, about nouns and so on and so on.
I don't like this because you get to see this, like, it sort of on average, if you do this 5 times, you expect to have seen essentially every form.
But the goal is different every time. So for instance, the first time we wanted to cover all numerals, the next time all nouns.
And do you say that you refuse to improve numerals?
After this, yes. So it's something. So
Oh.
it will be.
I think it sounds cruel. I think that if I see some new numerals, I will want to too strongly. It will be irresistible. I will have to go and fix the numerals.
Okay.
I don't know if I can control myself.
Okay, maybe it's better.
I definitely would feel more comfortable. I definitely would feel more comfortable if there's a held out portion, which we just never look at until the final day, judgment day.
But I mean, apart from the fact that I've never worked with corpora before, I mean, splitted by working with corpora, I mean operations like splitting it in 2 sets, then evaluating the results of applying our model, our output. Sorry. But there is another thing. This corpora I have, the corpora I've got is undigitalized. It's just a PDF file. Maybe it sounds stupid, but I cannot fully understand how would I store the.
So it's not a pure PDF file, but it's actually PDF file that I created from a Word file. And Word file is an XML annotated file.
Okay.
And I wonder what you're doing with during the Misha's classes, because I thought that you had some corporate there, aren't you?
Yes, yeah, Daniel. In my opinion, we still haven't reached the. I mean.
Sorry. What was the question again?
Did you, because Roman claimed that he haven't ever touched any corpora in his life. But I was wondering what you're doing.
I've touched corpora, and surely I will able to perform operations with it. I mean, but I never have some. I mean, regular practice with some libraries that are applicable in industry, something like какая же это, господи, которая развивает корпус, очень хорошо. Ладно.
But I don't think that is important at all.
Yes.
So imagine a huge text that should be splitted. Actually, it's 2 lines of text, but anyhow, I think it's easier to do. Now, the only question that I have is what Nick thinks about the splitting. Do you prefer to have, for instance, 2 text or randomly sample sentences?
I guess I would say 2 texts. That sounds better to me.
Okay.
It makes so the idea is that your the transducer that you build reflects the data, reflects the bias of the training corpus, the development corpus, the corpus that you're using to decide what words to add, what forms to add. And we want to control for this bias as best we can. And that means that when we take our measurements, I mean, we want to give somehow the worst possible situation to our transducer, which means try to find the least familiar kind of text that we can. So we develop on Wikipedia, and we feed it tweets. This is a great strategy because it tells you something about how biased the transducer that you've built is. So the more distant we can get in between the development corpus and the test corpus, the better.
Okay, sounds reasonable for me.
Well,
In general, underestimating performance is good, and overestimating performance is bad. Well, not good, but better than overestimating.
I would also like to ask about one thing. If we decide for some particular language to build another transducer that would map between, for example, between different writings, or for example, between IPA symbols and local writing, would it be necessary to reflect this in this техническое задание?
I don't know. I don't have any value in this техническое задание, so I guess put it whatever you think is reasonable.
Okay, thank you.
So here's what I would say. There are two versions that I can imagine of this техническое задание. First version is very vague and just says, like, here are 4 languages. We are building morphological analyzers, and we have corpora. We will analyze 15% of the corpora. The second version that I can imagine is more like research proposal or grant proposal. In this, you are describing the resources that you have. You're describing what you want to do with them. So this part is easy, 15% analyzed. And then you have to describe what problems do you foresee and how will you solve them. So you can say, well, our corpus for Bugvalal maybe is not in local orthography, so we will have to write a correcting transducer which will change the orthography for us. That's also fine. I think it just depends on how much detail you want. And maybe Asya also can give you some information on how much detail she wants.
Okay, thank you.
Should we hear what how things are going with Artyom?
Well, so I, as always, have added some minor corrections to my lexd file. But concerning twol, it's rather a bit of a mystery for me. I have run through documentation on read the docs, and I still haven't noticed anything that would be similar to what we were doing with our twol files.
Okay.
So I need to dive into that, or we can have some other guides to meet our case closer.
So
I guess I already sent something.
What?
I guess I already have sent you such a file. I will resend it again.
Okay.
Sorry, Garik, you're talking about some discussion of how twol works, of what it is?
What I'm saying is about Beasley Carton in 2003.
That's FSM book, yes?
So I'm forwarding this message again.
They're 2003. Yeah, 2003. Okay. So for some additional background on twol, I can send some links. Let's see. Yeah, there's a chapter in the FSM book. I haven't looked at it, but I'm sure it's good. But we didn't. I don't think we assigned this. Did we?
No, we didn't.
I'm looking. I'm also looking for it, and I don't see it. Where? Which chapter is it in?
I don't see anything on this.
I also don't see it now, and I'm confused because I have here a citation saying that it's there. So just one second. I have maybe it's a chapter that got removed. It looks like it got removed. Anyways, okay, so I can send a link to it. I can send a link to the missing chapter. Just one second.
So, well, I remember that this document was sent by you, George, but I also don't remember me reading it. So, well, that's it.
Okay,
I probably missed it or something.
I sent a link just now to the missing chapter, the secret chapter from this finite state morphology Bible, which it seems they removed the chapter on two-level morphology, on two-level phonology. But I've sent you a link to a PDF. Oh my, it's 70 pages.
And it's the same. It's the same that I've sent.
You've already sent this. Okay, sorry.
It's Wesley and Korttunen, 2003.
Yes, but somehow it seems that they were very prolific in 2003. That's also the citation for this finite state morphology book, which we sent to them to read for today.
Yeah. And I think that we have something like 20 minutes left.
Yes.
And we have 2 points in our plan. First one was to listen to the presentation from the previous time. And the second is to discuss FSM book.
Well, let's see. The presentation was, I think, on this machine learning paper. Yes. So maybe it's not so critical that we do this right now, and maybe it's better to hear questions on FSM book, since this may factor into the writing of this techniczne zadanie. What do you think?
Okay. Yes, sir.
And then we can have
Do you have any questions?
Again, excuse me for interruption. What the point we settled? Each of us cover its own boundaries in techniczne zadanie. Because of what? Because of the fact that each of us has got the different set of materials. So apparently, I'm the only one who got the corpora.
I think this is boring part. It could be resolved later.
Okay.
Sorry for answering, because it's I need to work on some of them, showing each of you where you have your own corpora, and in some cases just sending it and so on. But it's not something that we need to discuss now, I guess.
Okay.
Do you have any questions on FSM book?
So I haven't got any questions concerning the material of the chapters the chapters, I mean, before 1.5.
Okay. Anybody else?
Well, I have one question, but I'm not sure if it is particularly important, but it's more a thing of interest to me. As far as I understand the materials of the book, the way the words are represented in the final state transducer is somewhat like a graph, so to say, in which all the symbols are listed, and in one of the programs that are used for Russian morphology, some closed system is used. I will try to explain it more thoroughly. There, words are also stashed in a graph and split by symbols, and it's named, this data structure is named the direct acyclic word graph, if I remember it correctly, and it is of interest to me whether the graphs for the final state transducer are the same or different with this directed acyclic word graph. There, the symbols are also represented as separate nodes, which are then interconnected. And as I understand, they are the way they are connected to each other is quite close to what we see in the finite state transducer, but I'm not sure whether they are completely alike.
I don't understand Garik's comment.
So you didn't?
Well, yeah, the answer is F in FST, finite?
Yes, I think. Sorry.
I don't understand what it means. What does your answer mean?
Because as Daniel described, the system, there is a graph that can go for loops that could possibly be infinite loops.
But in finite state transducers, the finite there means that there are finitely many vertices and finitely many edges.
Okay.
And maybe even it only means finitely many vertices.
Finite in FST means that the system has a finite number of conditions. Not the conditions, but
states.
States, right.
Finite state. Yeah, so that's the first thing that I would say. You were describing a directed acyclic graph. Acyclic means there are no loops. In a finite state machine,
there are loops.
They're allowed. Yes, absolutely. Second, you mentioned that in this Russian system, vertices are labeled with letters or symbols. I think it's correct. Is it true?
Well, as far as I understand it, not the vertices, but the nodes are
nodes. Yes.
Nodes contain the symbols.
Yeah, so by this I mean the same thing, nodes, vertices. These are the points. And the edges, the arcs, have no label. And in FSTs, it's the opposite. So in FSTs, the labels on the nodes, on the vertices are completely, on the states, so those are the states, the labels are completely unimportant. We don't pay any attention to them. And it's the arcs, the edges that connect, that have the information about the symbols. So there is a connection between these two ideas, though. There's a construction called the dual graph of any graph, where you essentially interchange, you swap the role of edges and nodes. But this will not allow you to produce, so you might think, well, maybe I could take this Russian system and I could dualize it. And then probably you do get a finite state transducer or finite state automaton. But this is going to be an acyclic finite state automaton. And is that true? I think that's true. Maybe I have to think about it. It's at least not obvious to me that you can produce cycles this way. I think that the dual of an acyclic graph should be acyclic. Also unclear what to do about the direction. Yes, so in short, there is a connection between graphs whose points are labeled and graphs whose edges are labeled, but it seems that it's maybe subtle. I would have to think about it longer in order to construct some idea of why these two things might be the same. But definitely cycles are allowed for us, and that's very important in many situations.
Okay. Thank you. This is probably the answer that.
Yeah, the other thing that I would point out is that I doubt that there's any algebra associated with these graphs that you describe that are from this Russian system. Because we're using transducers, we have a very rich algebra where we can perform union, complement, composition, concatenation. These things are all very, very nice. And I don't think that they're, it seems to me that this Russian system is probably built and it's not composable in any sense. So it's not built out of smaller pieces. Some program created a graph and that's the end of it.
Yes, this is the case for sure, because it's just a system of containment for a complete dictionary.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so this might be an interesting data structure for lookup. So computationally, it might be very efficient to look things up, but without this algebra, it's not as flexible and modular a system. For example, it's not at all clear how you would transform this graph in order to make some phonological or orthographic change without just writing a specialized program for every change you want to make.
Yes, as far as I understand, this can't be done for real.
But as far as understood, this graph won't have any sense without direction. So it should be directed graph.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Then I'm not sure that it's so different, because I think if I just replace every edge with the point and every vertices with the arrow, it will be more or less more similar system, but without this second layer.
There's a problem though. It's not obvious to me how you dualize a directed graph. So how does the when you turn the arrow into a point, you lose this direction. You need to understand when you turn points into arrows, you need to understand how do they get assigned directions.
Yeah.
And it's not obvious to me. Like, for example, suppose that I have a graph and a directed graph, and I have some algorithm for computing its dual, where I swap arrows and points. Now reverse the graph. I should get a different answer. The dual of the reverse should be different from the dual of the original graph. And I don't understand how they will be different.
I think I get your point, but I still have that there are some tricks to do so, but I need to think.
But they're not obvious to me. I have to sit down in a quiet room with no children and lots of coffee and sort of with pen and paper for some time.
Any other questions?
Seems no.
If it's no, then you have 7 minutes for your next class. And I think this is the last meeting during this year. So.
And what is about your accessibility and yes, accessibility during this New Year's season, when we can write to you, and in what I mean, and when we can count on response.
I can't promise anything, but I would say whenever you write, I will answer one day.
Okay.
But it will be short, I think. If you write in the chat, I will answer quickly. If you made an issue on GitHub, I will probably see it and probably go there and within a day.
I feel the same way. Within a day is maybe optimistic, but maybe within 2 or 3 days. This I feel confident about. Also, I think that immediately following, sort of maybe, if you wanted to talk at some point after New Year's, I'll probably have some time. We're sending kids away, so I'll have so much free time, and I would be happy to talk sometime after the New Year. If you have some want to do some work.
So have a nice holidays then.
Should we what we'll do for next time? Maybe we can just write it in the chat.
Yeah, we will discuss it and we'll write it.
Okay.
So have a nice holidays and have a good luck to you during the exam, if you have any.
Apparently, we've got the one exam that we've already closed. I mean, автоматы. Как-то сказать. Вот. And the another exam is the formal models in natural language. Apparently, we are going to pass it in via homework format. So tasks will be sent us to work on them indoors. Not the indoors, but I mean, we will have plenty.
Basically, we don't have so many exams, but thank you anyway.
Yes. That's all I wanted to say.
Okay, then have a relaxing end of 2020.
Thank you. You too.
Thanks. You too.
We will try.